Hi everyone, and welcome to what today is probably going to be more of an advice type video than a specifically tips or tricks video. But based on a few discussions I've had with people over the last few years, I thought it would be a really good idea to explain my thoughts on how to approach cross edges generally on Hoya, especially on bigger cubes. So I'll be talking about things like efficiency versus finger tricks. So choosing shorter solutions that might be harder to execute compared to choosing longer solutions that have nicer finger tricks that are more ergonomic. And I'll also talk about solving one edge at a time and also influencing other pieces to force better cases while you're solving current pieces. So I'll start off by talking about efficiency. Now, I've already made a comprehensive document for solving your last cross edge on 5x5, and that is quite specific, but I think the techniques in there can be expanded on and applied to other cubes as well. But there are a definitive number of cases on 5x5, many of which have very good solutions and are fairly easy to recognize. So you can sort of treat them as algs or just solutions to cases in sort of the same way as you would F2L, as in you have lots of different F2L cases that you will come across in your solves, and there aren't really algs for them, but you learn a couple of different solutions to each one. And also, much like F2L, there are a lot of cases where there are some fairly short solutions, but that need regrips or are harder to execute in general. And there are alternative solutions to the same case that might be slightly longer, but will be easier to execute. So deciding which ones to use can be quite difficult. So hopefully me explaining my thoughts here will help you a bit on that. I don't necessarily recommend treating every single cross-edge case in the same way as your last cross-edge, but it is useful for the last one or two, definitely. For these cases, the document has a selection of solutions for each case that I think are worth considering. Normally this is 2 to 5 solutions per case, and these do vary in length and ease of execution. You will probably find that some cases are significantly harder to execute than others, and this may correlate to their efficiency. But specifically for the sheet and for the listed cases, if you're unsure what might be faster for you, then I would highly recommend timing out your execution for each of the different solutions to the same case, just to see which you can do faster. And this is what I've done for many of them as well, and it's been really helpful for me because when I started, I wasn't really sure how to approach this. So I thought the best thing to do would be literally just to see which cases are fastest for me. And there are some cases where I've timed out and shorter solutions are faster for me, and there are other cases where solutions that are 2 to 3 moves longer than the most efficient solution are actually faster than the shorter ones. So that's definitely worth doing. Now, if, for example, you know you're not a particularly fast turner, especially on big cubes, then I would encourage you to look at the more efficient solutions first, because especially on bigger cubes like 6x6 and 7x7, it can be hard to turn quite quickly, especially when you're alternating between slice moves and outer layer turns. So if you know that you're not that good at turning fast, then as a general rule, the more efficient solutions might be a better place for you to start. Then, on the other hand, if you know you can turn relatively quickly, but struggle with more complicated finger tricks on big cubes like double flicks or pushes, then you may find some of the longer but more ergonomic solutions are faster for you to execute. The ones that might stay in home grip the whole time, for example. Either way, it's always worth testing out different solutions or ways of solving the same case so that you can find what works best for you, because that's the most important thing. And I think my 5x5 last cross edge document is a great place to start and hopefully gain inspiration for how to approach cross edges on other big cubes as well. Now, that may seem fairly straightforward and common sense, but what I'm going to talk about now is the idea of solving one cross edge at a time versus solving whatever piece you see first. And this is a big trap that I used to fall into a lot. I would just sort of pick one single edge piece, whether it was a wing or a midge or whatever, and just solve that, and then just do whatever piece I saw next, whether it was meant to be part of the same edge or not. And after having refined my approach over the last several months, I think this is quite a bad thing to be doing in general. So if this is something you do, then I would definitely encourage you to sort of reconsider your approach and try solving just one edge piece at a time as much as possible. And the reason for this is that it gives you a lot more scope for cancellations and sort of other tricks to improve your efficiency. Because if you imagine that you're using the basic insertions for every piece one at a time, then your wings will either be good, so 3 to 4 moves, or bad, so 7 to 8 moves. And there's about 50-50 chance, assuming you do no influencing or anything like that, there's about a 50-50 chance that it will be each. And the midges are similar. They'll either be 5 or 6 moves, because I'm counting slice moves as 2 moves because that's how most people execute them. If you do this approach for solving every single piece, then very quickly you'll find that those move counts can add up a lot, and you're using a hell of a lot of moves to solve not that many pieces. However, if you solve one edge at a time, then you're more likely to be able to find ways to solve multiple pieces at once, or to just cancel between inserting pieces, and that will greatly decrease your move count, which, regardless of how fast you are at turning, is always a really good thing to be doing. Also, once you've solved one edge, you know you never have to go back to it, so you don't need to think about it again. Whereas when I was solving sort of just the first piece I saw and then moving on to the next one, a lot of the time I would find myself forgetting whether I'd completely solved an edge or not, and I'd have to check the D face to see what I had left unsolved, and I'd sort of just lose track of where I was in my cross edges, and that really ruins the flow of the solve. And especially towards the beginning of your cross edges, having an edge piece completely solved is also good because it completely eliminates one blind spot from the D layer, which makes finding other pieces a lot easier. If you're constantly having to look around the cube and to, rotate and scan your back slots and the D face, because there are still loads of places that the piece you're looking for could be, that will waste a lot of time. But if you know, for example, that you've already got your 2 solved cross edges in, say, the back and on the left, then you know that eliminates quite a lot of the more difficult blind spots to see, so you know you don't even have to look there for your piece, and that just makes it a lot easier in general to find pieces and also to look ahead in your cross edges. So I think overall that's one of the biggest and most important habits to try and train yourself into, is to try solving one edge at a time rather than just whatever individual piece you see first. Now, another thing that may seem to kind of go against that at first, but can still be incorporated and should still be incorporated into your solves regardless, is the idea of influencing pieces. So what I mean by that is, while you're solving 1 or 2 pieces, is maybe using a slightly different solution than you might normally to force the next piece you're going to solve into being a better case. Now, I do plan to have a video out on this in the near future going into more depth, but in basic terms, instead of inserting a wing as you would normally with U, R wide, U prime, R wide prime, you might be able to notice a position of the next piece you want to solve, and a way that you could change that piece from a bad orientation into a good orientation. You might use U2 R wide, U2 R wide prime, for example. Or another useful trick is to do a wide sledgehammer, so R wide prime F, R wide F prime. And obviously there are a lot of ways that you can do this. These are just 2 of the most common ways. The most important thing is to know that for wings, having them oriented is generally very bad, because you need a lot more moves to solve them than if they're misoriented. So if you notice that you've got 2 wing pieces, for example, one of them's oriented and one of them's misoriented, you generally don't want to do the oriented piece first, because there's likely going to be a way that you can insert the misoriented piece, still in not very many moves and still in quite a fast way, but that will be able to force the oriented piece to become misoriented, and that'll be a lot better. If you do the oriented piece first, you're locking yourself into an 8-move insertion, and then you've got a 3-move insertion, a 3 or 4 move insertion after that. Whereas if you do the misoriented piece first, you may end up having to sacrifice 1 or even maybe 2 moves to do a slightly longer solution that will affect the other piece, but then you're guaranteeing yourself that second piece to also be a 4-move insertion. So in the grand scheme of things, that uses a lot fewer moves. Now, although it may seem like influencing pieces is easier if you just solve one piece at a time, based on what you see first, There are plenty of ways to incorporate these techniques into your solve while still solving one entire edge at a time. For example, if you have a wing piece that's misoriented in a back slot and you want to bring it to the U layer so that you can insert it, but you also notice that you have another wing piece for maybe the next edge that you want to solve that's oriented in the U layer, instead of just bringing the first piece up to the U layer and not thinking about where the second piece is, maybe you'll end up with it in a back slot as you insert it, then what you should aim to do instead is when you're bringing the first wing piece into the U layer, position it relative to the second piece so that when you insert it, you'll be able to force the oriented wing piece to become misoriented. And then you can just go on to inserting the next piece in very few moves. And if you're struggling with this conceptually, then something I found really helpful to do is to get a solved cube and set up on it some of the basic insertions that you use a lot in your solves, mainly the 3 and 4 movers, and also the insertion to insert an oriented wing. Those are the most useful ones and the most common ones. If you set those up on a cube by doing the inverse of them, and then as you execute those solutions as you would in a solve, look at how the rest of the pieces on the cube are being affected. And if you do this with the different insertions that you use most, you'll start to see which pieces are affected by those insertions. And then when you come to solves, if you happen to see two pieces, and if you know that you can insert one of them and it will affect the other one, then you can think, okay, will this insertion force this next piece to be good or bad? And if it forces it to be bad, then is there anything different I can do to change that? And finally, the absolute best thing you can do by far to practice your Hoya cross edges is untimed solves. So when you get to cross edges in your untimed solves, really take time to think about what your first instinct would be, and then just see if there's something better. This applies to any size cube and is extremely helpful because you'll get different cases every time, and you are under no time pressure, so you can take the time and try a few different triggers or moves to see how each piece is affected. So if you have a case where you try the normal insertion for a wing U, R wide, U prime, R wide prime, and that doesn't affect any other pieces or doesn't make anything better, then just undo it and try something else, like try inserting it with U2s, or try a sledgehammer, or try a few different things and see how it affects pieces on the cube. And if you find something that works, think about why that works and think about which pieces were affected and how you can use that in your solves the next time. This is how I found most of the techniques I use in my solves, and the more you do it, the more likely you'll be able to spot those same good solutions during your timed solves and then improve your understanding of how cross edges work. Okay, so just to round out this video, I thought it would be a good idea to show you a quick untimed cross edge solves just to demonstrate what I'm on about. So the first thing I see here, obviously we're solving on white, and the first thing I see here is I can see this blue piece, this blue piece, and this blue piece all together, and this is a really good way to start. So I can do an F2 to solve the midge like that, and then the other two pieces are here and here. Now if I were to insert this piece normally with U prime, L wide prime, U, L wide, then this other piece goes into the back and it's oriented, so that's not a very good case. But what I can do instead is I know that if I sledge this piece in, then this slot will be flipped, and then this piece will then become a good piece. So I'll show you what I mean. If we do a left sledgehammer like that, then this other blue piece is now in the U layer and it's misoriented, so it's going to be a really nice insertion. As I'm doing that, I see that this piece is going to come up to here and these two will be paired together. So I can then go ahead and straight insert the two red wings together like that. And I do a quick scan around and I would see that my last one is here. So I would just bring this up to the U layer like that. And then I'm going to just insert this here with M slices because I think that's probably the quickest way. And as I'm doing that, I see these two are going to get broken up. Now this wing is going to stay misoriented, and this midge is going to go from being oriented to being misoriented. In fact, it'll end up here when the insertion's done, and this wing will end up back here. So we'll keep that in mind. And now we've done red. So because I've seen orange, I'm going to go straight, do a D2, and then go to do orange in the front. Now I haven't seen my last piece, but what I can do is just insert these two straight away. And I know that if I insert the wing first, then I can cancel sort of into inserting the midge like that. I can't see the other piece for now, so I'm just going to quickly check the back slots, and it's here. And I know a trick I can do for this. Instead of just bringing it to the U layer like that, which leaves it oriented, instead of doing B moves, which are kind of awkward, I can do this to solve it. Now we move on to green, and finally we've got this piece, and this piece here. There's a few different ways you could start. You could either start by inserting the midge, which does flip this piece, but it doesn't affect this piece, so there might be something better. So let's look. I could either insert this wing by doing that, but that doesn't affect this, so that's not very good either. So what I might just do is an F2 like that. That puts this here. That's not great. So is there anything I can do? Are there any moves I can do before or during inserting these pieces to make the case better? Well, this is already quite a good piece. This wing, this midge is misoriented, so I probably don't want to start with that. If I can, I want to keep it misoriented. This one, if I bring it to the U layer, will then also become misoriented. So what I could do here is do a U move, or even a U2, doesn't really matter, just to move it out of the way. And then I can continue inserting this. And now my last two pieces in the U layer, as you can see, are both misoriented. And now I can both insert both of these with simple 3 movers like that. And that wasn't too complicated. So hopefully that shows you the applications of sort of influencing your other pieces as you're solving them. So there you go. That's just a quick intermediate level cross-edge walkthrough, and I think you can see that there's a lot of scope for influencing your pieces as you insert them, and just inserting 1 or 2 extra moves to how you solve one piece can really turn the bad case that you're going to get next into a much better case, and I think that's really useful to know. So that about wraps it up. Those are my thoughts on how to generally approach cross edges, what techniques you should be thinking about using. Hopefully this helped a lot. And again, as I said before, I'd really encourage you to do a lot of untimed solves, play around with this for yourself, and just get more of a feeling of how your different insertions affect the other pieces and how you can use that to your advantage. So thanks a lot for watching.